Think about the most afraid you have ever been. Not stressed, not worried, afraid. The kind of fear that makes your chest tighten. The kind that makes you stop thinking clearly. The kind that makes you say, just make this stop. Now ask yourself one question. What would you have agreed to just to feel safe again? You probably do not want to answer that, because that is when power moves. Not when people are calm, not when people are strong. Power grows when people are scared enough to hand it over themselves. And once you see that pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. There is a playbook. First comes the shock, a crisis, an attack, a collapse, a virus, something big enough to make people desperate. Then comes the sacrifice, a new law, a new emergency rule, a temporary restriction, just for now, just until things are under control. And then comes the permanence. The crisis fades, life moves on, but the power stays, the cameras stay, the databases stay, the machinery remains. That is how rights disappear in the modern world. Not all at once, one frightened decision at a time. Think back to 9/11. Do you remember where you were when the towers fell? Do you remember the silence after? The confusion? The raw fear? In that moment, people would have agreed to almost anything if it meant safety. And that is exactly when the Patriot Act arrived. Mass surveillance powers, expanded government reach, privacy traded away in the name of protection. People were told it was necessary, temporary, exceptional. But temporary powers do not like to leave. And the privacy you gave up in fear never came back. That was the trade, freedom for safety. And in the end, you got watched more without feeling safer. Then came 2020, COVID. And once again, the world was pushed into fear. Empty streets, closed shops, canceled gatherings, families separated, people told where they could go, who they could see, whether they could work. And the message was always the same. This is temporary. This is for your safety. This is necessary. People lost jobs. Businesses died. Weddings disappeared. Funerals were missed. Grandparents died alone. Let that sink in. And if you questioned any of it, you were told you were the problem. That was the lesson. A frightened population will accept almost anything if it is wrapped in the language of protection. Now go back to 2008, the financial crash. Millions of ordinary people paid for a disaster they did not create. Savings collapsed. Homes were lost. Jobs vanished. And what happened to the people at the top? They were rescued. Banks were bailed out. Institutions were protected. The people who helped cause the disaster walked away with bonuses and a safety net. Ordinary people got the lecture. The powerful got the check. And that arrangement never got undone. Now ask yourself what the next version looks like. Because it is coming. Maybe it arrives as digital ID. Maybe it arrives as a cashless system. Maybe it arrives as a new form of verification or access control that promises to make life easier and safer. That is what makes the next phase more dangerous. It may not feel like force. It may feel like convenience. Watch for the moment they tell you the old way is unsafe. That is when they are about to take it away. No soldier at the door. No dramatic speech. Just an app, a scan, a permission system. That is how control becomes normal. Not by looking like a cage, by looking useful. And by the time people realize that convenience can also be dependence, the system is already in place. So what do you do with all of this? You remember the pattern. You remember that fear is the doorway. You remember that temporary powers have a way of becoming permanent. And you ask the question most people forget to ask. If this power is necessary today, who guarantees it disappears tomorrow? Because once fear becomes normal, surrender starts to feel reasonable. And that is how free people slowly become managed people, through a long series of frightened bargains. Comment the year you think they took the most from you. 2001, 2008, or 2020.